Betrayal, greed within the family, and the resilience of a mother who refuses to be forgotten are all themes that make up this novel. It all starts with a wedding, but instead of bringing happiness, it ushers in a whole new world of deception, plotting, and a struggle for survival. We've just sold this house, she remarked as she stood there with a phony smile on her lips that gave the impression that she owned the place. The nursing facility is where you will be going. I tried not to blink. I did not shed any tears. After giving you a smile in return, I said, "Perfect. The first place we should go is to the police station. I sent them some information about you, and they are quite interested in it. Please let me know in the comments section where you are from or what time it is for you if you are seeing this video, because the time is important. In the event that I make a mistake today, I will lose my home, my rights, and my life as I know it." In the middle of my living room, the notary stood as still as a lamppost during a turbulent storm. It was raining, and his clipboard was pressed up against his chest. His raincoat was saturated. In his presence, my newlywed daughter-in-law, Sabrina, flashed a grin. As if she were a flight attendant pointing to exits while the plane was already falling, her grin was not genuine. Rather, it was a cold smile that had been studied. She addressed Evelyn with a voice that was dripping with sugar. That would be Ken. "We only require a few signatures in order to clear up any issues about your care." She called it care, she said. I referred to it as theft. "What about coffee?" As the rain began to fall, I inquired. I felt a slight tremor in my hands. 42 years ago, I became a mother to my children. As soon as I smell an ambush, I know it's there. Just 2 days previously, I had the privilege of witnessing my son Mark exchange his "I do" in the very same chapel where his father and I later tied the knot. My savings from years of couponing, working late shifts, and making sacrifices that no one appreciated allowed me to pay for half of that wedding with money that I cobbled together. A total of $15,000 that I had accumulated, in addition to another sum for their initial deposit. At the same moment, Sabrina was attempting to remove me from the title to the house that I had assisted in purchasing. Mark had expressed his gratitude to me in a warm manner throughout the reception. But Sabrina had grabbed a microphone, her white dress gleaming like a weapon, and informed the gathering that I was only living with them and helping financially because that's what mothers do. In a single speech, she converted my sacrifice into a sign of weakness and my assistance into evidence that I couldn't let go of the situation. Through the eyes of other women, I saw compassion. My warning sign was that embarrassment I experienced. "These are care agreements," Sabrina chirped as she entered my kitchen the morning after the wedding. She was accompanied by an unknown person in a stack of papers that were so thick that they could force me to choke. "There are arrangements for assisted living." The phrase "cleaner paperwork" implied that my name was removed from the deed at the time. It implied that they were the owners of everything. I did not sign on that particular day. Then, with a kind grin, I thanked Ken for his time and explained that I needed some time to ponder. A brief smirk appeared on Sabrina's face for a brief moment. She wanted me to be feeble. She desired for me to be obedient. I am a lot of things, but am I soft where it really matters? Without a single one of them. The following morning, I prepared pancakes with blueberries. Mark's habit dates back to when he was 5 years old, and he still believed in magic rather than mortgages. The sound of Sabrina's silk pajamas rustling against the floor accompanied her entrance. She sat down like a queen and remarked, "That smell is incredible. Have you been able to relax and think?" It is possible for Ken to return at 2 o'clock. I made direct eye contact with her. "I have been pondering lately. Just what was it that led you to conclude that I required assisted living?" Her head was tilted in a manner that resembled a cat playing with a bird. It's not just one instance. It appears to be a general vulnerability, risk-free, the framework. Individuals of the same age, else of the same age as me, I repeated. So there are no falls? Are you sure there's no stove left on? Not a single drug error? She smiled less and less. You are almost 70 years old, Evelyn. We are taking preventative measures. Suddenly, I yelled out, I'm 68. I am being proactive by making sure that I get my flu vaccine and that I pay my payments on time. You're being proactive by removing my name from a deed that I paid for, aren't you? With a loud clang, her fork made contact with the plate. After that, she lost her temper. The money was given to us by you. You cannot offer a gift and then continue to harass it with inquiries for an indefinite amount of time. I took out a tiny spiral notebook that I had been holding for some months and unlocked the drawer that I had been using. While I was reading out loud, I turned the pages. The 15th of March, I was told by you that I had left the stove on. On that particular day, I cooked toast, not a stove. 22nd of March. You mentioned that I'd forgotten about the dinner plans. You called off the meeting that morning, so we never got them. 3rd of April 4th. You asserted that I was incapable of following a discourse. I pleaded with you to make your voice heard. I proceeded to softly close the notebook. You have been constructing a case by now, not for my own protection. Due to my lack of skills, a chill ran down her spine. For the very first time, I was able to see the individual beneath her polish. She hushed, "You're paranoid," as she spoke. It gives me the creeps. My response was, I am terrified of being patronized. In addition to that, I record everything. Yes, I do not forget. Exactly at that moment, a notification of a late fee rang on my phone. There was a problem with my automatic payment. Sabrina had put a hold on the stipend that consisted of my own money that she controlled. At this point, it was no longer just humiliation. That was the control. Not intangible. It's true. As a result, I set a trap. With a grin on my face, I stated, I'll think about assisted living. However, until the debt is repaid, the house will continue to be held in both names. This is not a matter of negotiation for me. It was with a stern tone that she stated that is not how the paperwork is drawn. I hushed, cleaner for you, as I put it. At that moment, she broke free of the mask. Are you aware of the nature of your issue? You are unable to let go of Mark. For a number of years, you have made him feel responsible for your feelings of isolation. This is the second time you've done it. Words were omitted. After the passing of my husband, I did, in fact, cling to my son. The evenings were overly silent. However, confession is not the same thing as consent. I had a stern look at her. Despite the fact that I held to you too tightly, that does not make deception a love language. Sharpness appeared in her eyes. In a hissing tone, she stated, you have 24 hours to sign. Alternatively, I will inform Mark about the pills. I had a sinking sensation in my stomach. Which tablets are? It was with a smug tone that she said the Xanax I found in your purse. I became numb. At the beginning of the previous week, a neighbor who was moving out requested me to pick up her prescription. It was still buried beneath my wallet at that point. It was discovered by Sabrina. On top of that, she was now twisting it. My response was, they are not mine. I was attempting to be helpful. Are you able to provide evidence for that? She gave a sly grin. Simply because, from where I am seated, it appears to be an elderly woman who is both confused and has a problem with drugs. Courts take that matter very seriously. That was the case. With a snap, the trap was closed. There was no longer enough time for my plan to stall. I was forced to put up a struggle. I decided to call my physician. During the same day, Dr. Brooks provided me with an opportunity to take a competency test. Memory, attention, and orientation are all important. The paper that she signed affirmed that I am completely capable. A hug was given to her, and the document was put away in my folder. It is armor. Subsequently, I went to the office of the sheriff. Detective Alvarez observed the situation attentively. It was his advice to collect everything: notes, emails, and bill receipts. Don't sign anything if they try to do this again. Keep a record of everything. In the event that they make another threat of guardianship, you should record the precise phrases. I gave a nod in agreement. I am by myself, but I am not down. I drove back to the pharmacy to return the medication while I was on my way home. As evidence, the manager handed me a slip of paper, adding yet more weapon to my stash. It was 2 o'clock when Ken came back. Prepare the clipboard. The wolf-like smile that Sabrina wore. I arranged 3 cups of coffee on the table. A copy of my driver's license was placed on the table by me. Then I placed my folder down, which contained copies of the deed, the loan agreement, the power of attorney section that required 2 doctors, my most recent medical letter, and the slip from the pharmacy. This caused Ken's eyes to widen as he read. There was a noticeable loss of color on Sabrina's face. In my recliner, I sat back and relaxed. Mr. Financial exploitation of an elderly person is a criminal offense, Draper. Assuming you intentionally assist, you will also be held accountable. Should we move forward with this? Kenneth took a deep breath. I believe it would be for me to go outside. She reached out and grasped his sleeve. Don't do it, Ken. Nevertheless, he had already left. There was a hush in the house. The 2 of us shared a cup of coffee. Although my hands were still, my heart was beating quite fast. Sabrina yelled at the person, "You think you've won?" I said, "I believe I have reached the end of my formality." She lowered her voice to a whisper, and it was as sharp as glass. He is going to pick me. It is inevitable that Mark will pick me. After making eye contact with her, I spoke in a calm manner and said, in matters of love, maybe. It would be best if he did not engage in criminal activity. The falling rain began to tap on the windows. My house smelled like coffee, paper, and battle all at the same time. I was aware that battle was not yet ended, but I hadn't yet been defeated. It began to rain and the windows began to tap. My house smelled like coffee, paper, and battle all at the same time. I was aware that battle was not yet ended. The rain outside became stronger, and it pounded against the window as if it wanted to get inside. However, I had not yet lost at that point. The street below me was the focus of my attention as I stood at the window with my arms folded. Every drop seems to be uttering a cautionary note. On the other side of me, Sabrina was quite silent. This round, she had been defeated, but I was familiar with her personality. There was more to her. I made a calculated turn back. She appeared to be sitting on my couch as if it were her own, with her silk still sparkling and her lips pressed thin. The mask was no longer present. There was neither a bride nor a daughter-in-law that I observed. It turned out to be a strategist who had conducted her entire life based on manipulation. In response, she stated, "Evelyn, you're making a mistake." The softness in her voice had all but disappeared. At this point, it was entirely made of steel. It was my response that I said, "The only mistake I've made is allowing you to believe that I was weak." Her pupils became more constricted. As she rose up, she reached for her coat. "You will come to regret this." I said, "I keep records," while tapping the folder on the desk. "In the event that I have any regrets, I will have evidence of the responsible party." Her hand became immobile on the doorknob. She gave the impression that she was about to leap at me for a fraction of a second. However, she did not. Instead, she grinned in a way that was both timid and menacing. "Are you optimistic that Mark will take your side?" She whispered. He said, "When I tell him that you phoned the cops on us, you will be surprised." After that, she vanished, leaving the door slammed shut behind her. The hush reached a dense level. In spite of the fact that the rain outside had settled into a steady rhythm, my heart continued to beat rapidly. I took a seat, brought my spiral notebook as close as I could, and jotted down every single word that she had said. "This is something you will come to regret. You have the hope that Mark will agree with you. Await my announcement that you have contacted the authorities." Each and every sentence was significant. At one point, Detective Alvarez gave me the following advice: "Threats fade away quickly if you don't write them down." I was unable to get to sleep that night. As I lay in bed, fixed my gaze on the ceiling, I listened to the sound of the old pipes groaning and the rain gradually disappearing. I was thinking about Mark. To my son, I brought up the young kid who would later become the guy who bore Sabrina's shadow like a cloak. Would he go with me as his partner? If she were to lie, would he believe her? By dawn, I had received my response. It was Mark who knocked on my door. There was a tangle in his hair, his tie was crooked, and his face looked pale. He did not knock, rather he buzzed as if he were angry. His buzz was short and harsh. After opening the door, I gave it a wide stance. "Mr. Mark, good morning." "Mom," he murmured as he immediately stepped in. "It seems incomprehensible to me what you said to Sabrina." The impact of the words was greater than the rain could possibly be. My voice was steady as I said, "I told her the truth." She arrived at home in tears. His voice cracked and broke in the middle of his words. "According to her, you accused her of committing fraud and of attempting to steal from you. You even threatened her with the police, according to what she said. Is it true like that?" I made my way to the table, at which point I placed my palm on the folder and moved it in his direction. "There will be no threats, only the facts. Take a peek at it." He paused for a moment. Although his gaze briefly shifted to the folder, he did not open it. He groaned and ran his hands through his hair instead of doing anything else. "Why are you acting in this manner? I don't see why you can't just let us take care of you. Will you look after me?" I reiterated, feeling a rising temperature in my chest. "3 days after your wedding, you brought a notary into my kitchen, Mark. I was surprised to see you. This was not a concern. Those were the controls. This constitutes theft." His eyes quickly blinked away. Although he was experiencing a fleeting moment of guilt, he vigorously shook his head. "Things are being twisted by you. Just a little bit worried. There is a concern that she has for your well-being." I took the letter from Dr. Brooks and lightly smacked it on the table before putting it away. "Listen to this. Fully capable? With a focus. Do not decline. I am able to successfully manage my life. It is safer than you believe." After staring at it, he stared at me. He shook his lips in fear. Neither of them picked it up. "Rather than that," he murmured, "she describes you as being paranoid. What do you think about that?" I inquired in a quiet voice. There is no sound. The silence was oppressive and excruciating. At long last, he said, "I don't know." My chest was shattered. My kid, the young boy who used to hold my hand as I crossed the street and who buttered my toast when he was 8 years old, suddenly looked at me as if I were the issue. In a forceful tone, I stated, "I will tell you what I am aware of. When I was raising you, I was honest, by making a sacrifice. Every meal I skipped, every shift I worked late, and every dime I saved was spent on you. I did it all for you. All of that is spit in your face if you continue to support her lies." This caused him to flinch, but before he could respond, his phone began to buzz. The man looked down. "That is her name." "Do not answer," I retorted in a stern tone. However, he did it. It was always the case. "Yeah, I'm here," he said into the phone while casting a single glance in my direction. "No, she's fine. There is no way that I looked at the papers. I'll be back at your house very soon." He then hung off, stuffed his phone into his pocket, and diverted his attention away from me. He stated, "I am unable to do this at this time. I'll give you a call." After that, he departed. Despite the fact that the door shut behind him, the pain continued to be present. With the folder weighing heavily in front of me, I sat in the stillness. It was my own son who was unwilling to discover the truth. It was far faster than I had anticipated that Sabrina's poison would spread. However, I had not reached the end. Detective Alvarez was the one I called. My response was, "She threatened me once more. And now she is turning Mark against me," she also said. His advice was to document it. Every syllable, each and every time. Also, Evelyn, use some caution. Those who are like her do not give up when they are told no. They are ramping up. The rain could not have cooled me down as much as his words did them. I went to the bank with my money that afternoon. I created a new account that was completely segregated from anything that Sabrina could access. I also put a freeze on my credit. With a gentle expression on her face, The young woman who was telling the story came in close and murmured, "We see this more often than you think. You're acting in a conscientious manner." In addition to a fresh card in my possession, I walked out of the bank with a little bit extra steel in my spine. Sabrina, however, was not yet finished. In the evening, I found an envelope tucked up beneath my door. On the inside was a photocopy of my driver's license, for which the phrase "expired" was written in red marker over the entire document. My driver's license had not yet expired. It was a danger to him. After taking a picture, I made a note of the date and time, and then I inserted it into the folder. Following that, I sat back and grinned. This is not because it was humorous, rather, it is because there are times when you might drown if you don't laugh. After waking up the following morning, I rang the intercom at the door of my new neighbor. A woman with warm eyes and sharper intuition, Mrs. Patel, was the one who opened it as well. "Are you able to do me a favor?" I inquired. "In the event that anyone comes here and inquires about me, especially Sabrina or her mother, we beg that you remain silent. Just give me a call?" She gave a slight nod. "Not only are you not the first. Do not be concerned, I will stay vigil." It was more than she understood that her comments brought me peace. But that comfort did not continue for very long. The appearance of Sabrina's mother occurred 2 days later. She grinned like a politician, wore pearls, and carried a leather purse. She also wore sunglasses. "Evelyn," she said in a composed manner, "it is imperative that we have a conversation." I opened the door for her. In my living room, she sat down, placed the satchel on a table, and then unbuckled it while she was there. You could find thick envelopes of cash within. 30,000, she whispered in a low voice. "A return of the initial deposit. Not to mention a pillow to soften the harshness. Take it and sign this acknowledgement that you will not pursue this any further with your efforts." Towards me, she slid a piece of paper. I was fixated on it. Right on the money. As she attempted to purchase my silence, the woman who appeared to be so calm stared at me. I spoke gently and continued, "You want me to sign this so that your daughter can avoid consequences of her actions." "It is in everyone's best interest," she stated. I gave a slender smile. "No, it's in your best interest." Although she did not change her features, her eyes did shift. Chilly, doing the math. After a little while, I was able to see where Sabrina had acquired her skills. It was with one finger that I tapped the envelope. "It is not restitution," she said. "Hush money is what this is." She made a curled lip. "Say anything you want to call it. The situation will get more difficult for you if you choose to refuse." When I went outdoors, the rain had ceased. The atmosphere in the room was calm. As I leaned forward, I maintained a steady voice. "I have already had a conversation with the sheriff. This talk will be recorded in its entirety, word for word. Do you intend to make things more difficult for me? Let's try. However, keep in mind that paper trails do not burn." During the time that she was standing and putting the envelopes back into the satchel, her pearls shone brightly. She remarked, "Evelyn, you are an obstinate person. This is not the same thing as being bold." I broke into a smile. Simply put, bravery is simply obstinacy that is directed in the right direction. The moment she froze, she went out of the room with her heels making a harsh clicking sound against the floor. I sat back down as soon as the door was shut. My hands were shaking. My heart, however, remained calm. Given that I was now aware of the truth, Sabrina was not the only one affected by this. Everyone in her family was there. Given that I was now aware of the reality, Sabrina was not the only one affected by this. Everyone in her family was there. Suddenly, the realization struck me like a hammer. Sabrina was not the only one who was pulling the strings. Her mother, possibly her father, and possibly even more were also involved. A group of manipulators who were around me like wolves, waiting for the moment that I would give into their charms. That evening, I was sitting at the table in my kitchen with the folder open to its fullest extent. My paper protection against their greed can be found in the form of documents, letters, receipts, and images. In my mind, I was only going up against one individual. I finally realized that I was going up against a family. In addition, they were able to rely on their wealth, influence, and charisma. The only weapon I had was one. This is the truth. The phone started to ring. I jumped, almost ruining my coffee in the process. I grabbed it up with a pounding in my chest. Mark was the one. He spoke to his mother in a low and resonant tone. How come you chose to make her mother feel ashamed today? It appears that Sabrina had already called him. Without a doubt, she had. I did not humiliate anyone, I stated in a composed manner. In exchange for my silence, she gave me money. I rejected it. The man's voice was trembling. You are making this situation even more difficult. Is that clear to you? People are claiming that you are unstable. People are claiming that you are paranoid. Are you paranoid? I lost my temper. My friend, I have evidence. Take a peek at it when you get here. It was a sigh. I am unable to, Mom. I would like not to be in the center of this situation. In a low voice, I murmured, You're already in the middle. Because you tied the knot with her. There is no sound. Afterward, he mumbled, I have to go, and then hung up the phone. With a hollow feeling in my chest, I glanced at the deadline. My kid, the young man whom I single-handedly brought up following the death of his father, was sliding through my fingers like sand. He was being pulled away by people who were smirking the entire time they were doing it. I went to church the following morning to worship. For God, of course, but it's possible that he was listening. I decided to go there since I had always felt more powerful when I was inside the walls of that temple. Immediately following the ceremony, I sat down with Pastor James, who was an old friend of my late husband. I shared everything with him. It is the notary public, the dangers that exist, the cash that is up for grabs. Slowly nodding his head, he listened. As a result, he leaned forward. Evelyn, the only way for the wolves to triumph is if the sheep remain silent. Put everything in writing. Say everything you want to say. Even if they haul you to court, you will not recuse yourself from the truth. You are not to be isolated. It was his comments that rekindled the fire within me. During the afternoon, I made my way home by walking in the rain. My coat was waterlogged and my shoes made a squelching sound. And as soon as I opened the door to my front door, the odor assaulted me. Gasoline. I became numb. My hands were shaking when I entered the building. This stove was turned off. The knobs were not flexible. However, there was a thick and pungent odor of gas in the air. When I got to the window, I ripped it open and took a deep breath of the fresh air. I then dialed the number for the utility company. A work belt and a pair of heavy boots were worn by the man who arrived. The pipes, the valves, and the meter were all examined by him. Finally, he gave me a gloomy look in his eyes. This has been altered in some way. The boundary was loosened by someone. This was not a simple occurrence. My knees became weak. Call the police, he stated in a commanding tone. I have already done that. Soon after the hour had passed, Detective Alvarez arrived. While I was telling him everything, his jaw became more rigid. According to him, Evelyn, this is no longer just financial abuse. Here is an endeavor to cause harm. Maintain the locks on your doors. Make sure that I am contacted before allowing anyone to enter. I was sitting in my chair as he departed, and I was staring at the shadows that were crawling across the walls. This was no longer a disagreement within the family. This was a matter of survival. 24 hours passed in a tense silence. Sabrina declined to show up. It was not her mother who called. Mark did not come to view, but serenity is not necessarily synonymous with calm. There are instances when it requires conspiring. I was awakened by a peculiar noise on the third night. There was a slight click downstairs. While I listened, I took a deep breath. Still another click. After that, there was the sound of a drawer being opened. My home was occupied by a person today. I retrieved the phone that was sitting on my nightstand and dialed Alvarez's number. My hushed voice trembled. There is a person present. Be quiet, please. Remain at your current location. We are on our way. It was a gradual and steady movement of footsteps through the kitchen. When the cabinets opened, papers began to rustle. It was clear that whoever it was looking for something certain. This is my folder. Although I was praying that they wouldn't climb the stairs, I clenched it tightly to my chest. After that, blue lights began to flicker outdoors. The door of an automobile slammed shut. The intruder ran away fast. It was the back door that I heard slam open. The individual had already left by the time Alvarez's men began their search. On the other hand, they had forgotten something. One of the notes was placed on the counter in the kitchen. This is the final warning. It was bagged by Alvarez, who frowned. Evelyn, they're picking up the pace. In addition, they're not going to stop until they believe they have successfully broken you. Are you prepared to come into this fight? Although my hands were shaking, I maintained a firm voice as I gazed at him. I've been prepared for this, detective, ever since the day I laid my husband to rest. I brought up a child by myself. In order to maintain a roof over my head, I have worked 3 jobs. I have fought fights that were more difficult than this one. They made the wrong choice in a woman. I put in a call to a lawyer the following morning. Daniel Harper was the name of the man, and he had gray hair and eyes that were piercing. Everything, including the letters, the folder, and the threats, was placed on his desk by me. Before looking up, he read in silence for a while. "You have a case," he stated in a blunt manner. "Not only for fraudulent activity, but also for attempted exploitation. When they push, we will push back even more forcefully." The feeling of hope returned to me after a period of weeks, but there is a frail hope. During the evening, as I was making tea, my phone began to buzz. A message from a number that cannot be identified. It was not a photograph. That is me, being seated at the table in my kitchen, shot via the window of the room. I became chilled to the bone. After securing the door with a double lock and closing the blinds, I sat down with the folder on my lap. The shaking in my hands was so intense that I almost dropped the tea. They were keeping an eye on me. Once more, the phone would buzz. One more message. There are only 3 words. "You will be by yourself." I was so taken aback that my breath escaped me. As my eyes grew full, I then wiped them down with great force. "No," I silently uttered. "Not by oneself." By no means. I took out my pen, opened up my notebook, and jotted down everything that I had to say. Each and every syllable. Every danger. Every single picture. Due to the fact that paper trails do not burn, all of them were going to be brought into the light by me at some point in the future. Due to the fact that paper trails do not burn, all of them were going to be brought into the light by me at some point in the future. I was exhausted, but I wasn't completely lost. In the event that they intended to frighten me, they had grossly miscalculated me. I had made it through far too much in my life to allow myself to be defeated by this. The clouds hung low like a warning as the morning arrived, and the sky was cloudy and thick. I took my time getting ready, tucked the folder away in my bag, and proceeded to phone my attorney, Daniel Harper. "I am prepared," I informed him. At that point, he stated, "We move forward. Bring everything with you. Today is the day that we will submit our protection application." It didn't matter that he couldn't see me. I still nodded. There was a feeling of entering a battleground as one made their way to his office. I kept thinking about Mark at every stage. The question is whether he would support me or oppose me in this situation. Despite the fact that the notion was painful, I continued on. When Daniel arrived at the office, he carefully arranged the materials on his desk. In each of the pieces, he pointed to Dr. the letter from Brooks, the gas report, the threats, and the photograph taken from my window. This is not as simple as a supposition. That is evidence, right? If they wish to get into a fight, they will be charged with it. For the very first time, I experienced a relaxation in my shoulders. But before I could even catch my breath, my phone beeped. It is Mark. Following a little pause, I responded. A trembling voice could be heard as he hushed. But Mom, we have some things to discuss. By oneself. I beg you. I felt a thump in my chest. Who is it? According to him, by the lake. There is a bench close to the willow tree, half an hour or so. I informed Daniel and he gave me a frown. Don't go by yourself. However, I was compelled to. My son was his name. At the time of my arrival, the lake was peaceful. There were ducks swimming over the water. Willow branches moved in a swaying motion. Moreover, there he was, sitting with his back arched, his suit jacket crumpled and his tie untied. Upon my approach, he cast his gaze upward. Both of his eyes were crimson. A gentle voice called out, Mom. When it comes to believing, I am at a loss for words. When I was sitting next to him, I remarked, then you should believe the truth. You've known me for the entirety of your life. You honestly believe that I would tell a lie about this? His face was buried in his hands as he did so. She claims that you are attempting to destroy us. According to her, you are envious. That you want me to pick anyone between you and her as my partner. My eyes were bled by tears. I don't want to make a decision. I want you to see the truth for yourself. She is not guarding me in any way. She is robbing me of my life. The man gave a head shake. Mom, I was able to locate the images. Those of you who are passing through the window. According to her, you took those on your own, in order to frame her. A chill ran down my spine. It's not Mark. That is not true. Pay attention to the timestamps. Take a look at the different perspectives. Would you believe that I took photographs of myself at midnight while I was standing outside of my own house? With a trace of uncertainty, he stared at me. He questioned her for the very first time, which I witnessed. Please, I mumbled to myself. Simply have a glance at the folder. You should read it. Don't believe anything she says. Please don't steal mine. Make use of the truth. There is no sound. After that, he gave a slow and uncertain nod. All right. I'll have a look. The triumph was not particularly significant, but it marked a breach in Sabrina's defenses. Nevertheless, the conflict became more intense that night. It was knocking on my door when I woke up. The police. 2 officers were there with a gloomy expression on their faces. We have a report that you threatened your daughter-in-law with violence, one of the individuals to whom Evelyn was addressed remarked. A gap appeared in my mouth. What is it? The officer stated she claims that you are the one who threatened to burn down their house. I shook my head and said, I never. That is not true. In every way, a falsehood. My hurried call brought Daniel to the scene, and he arrived a few minutes later. During his conversation with the authorities, he displayed my folder, the logs, and the threats that had been made against me. They paid attention. Despite my presence, they did not arrest me. Nevertheless, the message was plain. When it came to me, Sabrina was prepared to turn the law itself against me. Following their departure, I sat down with Daniel. My hands were shaking. How do I go about combating someone who lies more quickly than I can take a breath? He said it in a calm tone. You don't. You choose to listen to the evidence. She is one of those people that overplays their hand, and we will be prepared for them when they do. He was correct in his assessment, due to the fact that Sabrina went above her limits the very next week. In court, she submitted a petition for guardianship. I was accused of being incompetent. I asserted that I was hooked to medicines, alleged that I posed a threat to my own safety. A hearing has been scheduled. The suit that I wore was my best one. In the courtroom, Mark was seated on one side, and Sabrina's hand was firmly wrapped around his. Behind them, her mother sat with her jewels sparkling brightly. They all appeared to be smug, as if the result was already in their possession. As soon as it was my turn, however, I stood tall. I gave the judge the letter that Dr. Brooks had written. I handed over the report from the gas company. I handed the notes that included threats. By way of the window, I gave out the photograph of myself. In a gradual manner, the lies began to crumble. The eyebrows of the judge perked up. Mrs. Evelyn is capable, he announced with a forceful voice. In this situation, she ended up being the victim, not the attacker. This request has been turned down. In addition, I am taking the initiative to initiate an investigation into the possibility of financial exploitation. The color faded from Sabrina's face. Her mother became rigid. There was a look of bewilderment on Mark's face as he looked between us. The gavel was brought down. This was the end, or so I had believed. Mainly due to the fact that when we emerged from the courthouse, Sabrina got very close to us, her grin being piercing and poisonous. Do you believe that you have triumphed? Not yet is this over. You will go down, and we will be waiting for you when you arrive. I addressed her in a low voice, while gazing into her icy eyes and stated, paper trails do not burn. Additionally, mothers who are fighting for their lives do not do so. It caused her to flinch. It's only a moment. After a few days, weeks passed. The inquiry expanded in size. The family of Sabrina was in a hurry. Checks were made on the bank accounts. It was possible to track down statements. They were unable to spin the lies as quickly as they were unraveled. Through it all, I managed to maintain my composure, because I have something that others did not have. This is the truth. I was approached by Mark in the evening, by oneself. There's no Sabrina. There's no smug smile. It's just my son. He sat down at my table, damp in the eyes. He hushed his mother and said, "Mom, I read it all. I was able to witness everything. Sorry, I'm so sorry." My vision was thrown off by tears. Please don't feel the need to apologize. You merely need to look at it. He moved his head up and down. Yes, I am. So I see now. Aside from that, I will support you. After a period of several months, I experienced hope that was more powerful than dread. It was not yet over, at least not in its whole. People that are similar to Sabrina do not disappear overnight. However, she had lost her hold on us. It had become more widespread, and in a short amount of time the entire wall would collapse. To pass the time until then, I would keep my folder close at hand, my records organized, and my heart steady, because members of the same family can betray one another. Love has the ability to blind. Greed has the potential to poison, but truth is able to endure. Moreover, I was still present, because members of the same family can betray one another. Love has the ability to blind. Greed has the potential to poison, but truth is able to endure. However, I was still present. Leave a comment below and let me know where you are now watching the story from, whether it was anything that kept you watching until the very end. What you say is more significant than you realize. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to receive further tales similar to this one, and make sure to click the bell so that you never miss the next one. Believe me when I say the following chapter is even more unbelievable.